Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of I'm Human Too. This week I have a really fun guest. Her name is Tiana, and I know her personally and professionally, so I'm excited for her to share what she does, who she is, and why she does what she does. So welcome, Tiana.
Thank you.
Yes.
Happy to be here. It's my first podcast ever.
Oh, okay.
So we'll just see how this goes. But
Yes. Yeah.
so I guess just kind of starting about like what I do out here in Spokane.
Yeah.
So about 3 years ago, so coming up in March is going to be my 3rd year anniversary of opening the Pilates Ritual.
Nice.
So it's a studio downtown in the steam plant building.
Yes.
And if people don't know Pilates, like it is kind of like this full body movement. We really try to connect mind and body, which you probably heard about a lot, in movement practices.
Yes.
But really to connect like breath, movement, full body stuff. It is kind of like a meditative thing, like especially like in the beginning. But my style is a little bit more athletic. So the clients that usually will come in and see me really are from like all walks and every type of body type, old, young. And I just feel like them coming in the beginning can be very intimidating. So if people have never done it, I try to have the approach where it's just like a beginner's mindset. Like no matter who you are, if you've done Pilates before or haven't, like we can all kind of be on the same page and just feel really successful with the movement that we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been there for about 3 years. I've been teaching for much longer than that. And to be honest, I didn't really know if I wanted my own studio. Like people think, oh, you opened it. It's like, finally you did this thing that you've always wanted to do. And I was like, man, I don't know if I ever wanted to do that. Like it was kind of scary.
Yeah.
I started in San Francisco. So I had been serving for years and years. So previous to that, it's just been like, okay, serving tables, that's going to be kind of my life. There was a point where I was like, this isn't enough anymore. Like this just doesn't feel fulfilling.
Yeah.
And so, Lucas was a big push. This is my fiancé, and just a big push to be like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what does feel like it would light you up or something exciting? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. I love working out. I love movement, but like, can you get paid for that? Like to work out?
Yeah.
And so there's lots of versions of that, but you can. And so I initially went in and did like this online, personal training thing first. And so I did the whole test out. I went in, did the, practical and all that. And then I was like, this still isn't it though. Like there was something else that was like pushing me to be like, you're almost there. Like this feels a little bit better. You're almost there. But, I went and took a random Pilates class, like just took a mat class. And at the end I was like, dude, this was like really nice. Like I loved the flow of this. I love the cueing. I love the full body connection to it.
Yeah.
And so I ended up asking the teacher just after class, I was like, yo, like, how do you get into this?
Yeah.
And so she just kind of rattled off a bunch of different Pilates names, right? Like schools and stuff. The one that I remembered, like out of all the 4 or 5 that she said, was Balance Body. And so I go, okay. So I went home, kind of Googled some stuff, and like immediately, it was like the next week, a BART ride away, like maybe a 10-minute ride away, there was a studio that was going to be having this teacher training. I'm like, okay, that's really weird. So I literally kind of get all my things together. I'm like, this can be a big investment, like thousands of dollars to start this new thing that I may or may not like.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm ready to do the thing.
Yeah.
So I go in and I'm like, okay, well, we're starting this thing. I've never been on a reformer in my life. So I'm like, I think I'm just going to be a mat Pilates teacher. So I'm just going to go in. I'll just do the mat work. I'll, pass it. I'll do whatever. And then I'm just going to be teaching Pilates on the mat.
Yeah.
And, so we go in and it's like a smaller group of people, you kind of do the whole thing. You introduce each other. You're going around your little circle. And like, are you going to take all the training? Are you going to do, this, whatever. So you introduce yourself. And I was just like, honestly, this is really expensive. And I don't really know if I'm going to do the rest of it. I was like, I'm probably just going to do the mat thing and then we'll be done. And at the end of it, like the first kind of round, we did a couple exercises, whatever. And you're kind of like getting into the flow of it. The owner pulls me aside and was just like, okay, so it's like the only reason, like the financial part, like, or is there something else? And I was like, no, honestly, that's basically it. I was like, I'm still serving. I'm doing all this stuff kind of in between. And she goes, okay, I have a proposition for you. And I was like, okay, like, what's up? She goes, we're looking for somebody to do like the front desk, like to have somebody like, you know, basically take over that. You would just like write emails, like just be the face of it, right? And I'm like, okay. And she goes, and we would just kind of trade you. Like, we'll do Pilates bucks for like your time. And I go, that's awesome. Because basically I want to spend all my money on this anyway.
Yeah.
So we basically did like a trade. And that was the first person that I feel like saw something in me that I didn't. And so you kind of are doing the thing, you're like, am I doing this right? Like, I don't know if this cueing is right. Like, am I ever going to get this?
Yeah.
And then she saw something where she had pulled me aside enough to be like, I'm going to give you this chance. And that was huge. So her doing that for me, I felt pushed me into this like trajectory of like, this is your career now. This is like what you're going to do. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this next scary thing where I have to like teach in front of people and like have to talk in front of people I don't know. And I'm like, I was always just way more meek. Like I did not like to talk in front of people.
I literally cannot even imagine that version of you.
Right? Like where I'm just like the shy one?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like, I still feel that sometimes, you know, but I do feel like that has brought me out. And I feel like it, you know, it's not about me at the end of it, right? Really, when it comes down to it, it's like I'm there and I'm helping these people come in and just to feel better in their bodies. That's like literally the goal, right? And so after teacher training, went through all of that stuff, like finished in San Francisco and did, you know, like, oh, finally I'm a teacher. Like nobody's watching me. Like, cool, imposter syndrome. Go ahead and just kick right in.
Yeah.
And so dealing with all of that, right, you have to just kind of show up. Like I kept showing up. And that was, I think, the biggest part is no matter what the feelings are inside that you're like, maybe I could just not show up and then like that would also be fine and I wouldn't be scared anymore.
Yeah.
But now it's like that person that maybe needed to hear the way that you cued that or to do whatever. So it's like, again, it's more of like this service, right? And so, after San Francisco, Lucas and I did move around a lot. But the cool thing about that is I got to see different studios. I got to work the front desk, right? Like figure out all of that stuff. See how other studios are, the way that they teach and meet different people, see tons of different kinds of bodies, injuries and whatnot. Worked with a couple famous people, just name dropping. But then there's that moment too where I'm like, okay, well now what's next, right? Because now you're like, okay, got all the teacher training hours and I'm feeling really good, you know, like actually I'm pretty good at this. Like I don't really feel the imposter syndrome anymore. And then it's like, okay, we moved to, New Orleans. I was there for a little bit. We moved to Spokane for a little bit and then back to California. It was kind of this like around the world thing. Yeah. But again, like it's all just more practice. There's just more things that I got to learn. And then I knew that like, so during the pandemic, right, it being nuts out in Oakland. Yeah. It was just like, ooh, this is kind of scary. And we were all just like, we don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. Like, what's going to happen tomorrow? Like, we literally were seeing like straight up carjackings in front of our house, people getting shot, like stores getting broken into. I'm like, I'm kind of nervous here. Like, I don't know if I want to stay here. Yeah. So Lucas is from here. So the nice part is we sort of had like this opening where it was like, well, we could go to Spokane. Yeah, we lived there before, but it'll be in a little bit different way. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, listen, if I'm going to do this, I got to have my own studio. Like I want to have my own space. And he really did like urge me to be able to do that. Yeah. And the beauty about it out here, there was something magical that like, I looked at like 4 spots, but the steam plant was the first one. And that one happened to be fully vacant for like however long because of the pandemic. Yeah. And so I'm like looking around and at first it was actually the gelato place that was like right next door. Yes. And I was like, it's cute. Like I love the windows. I love all of this stuff. But I was like, it just doesn't feel like a studio to me. Yeah. And so Christy goes, let's go over here. Walks me over just down that little hallway. Yeah. And then she opens the door and I went, oh my God. And I just looked at the space and I was like, okay, my office is going to be here. Okay, the reformers are going to be here. This room's going to be for privates. And it literally was like perfectly set out. The cubbies were there and everything. Yeah. And I was like, okay, this is the spot. Yeah. And barely, I had to put a coat of paint on it and like put some floors in. Yes. And some mirrors, right? And then obviously the equipment. But everything is in its place. And I was like, whoa. So like once it was all built and everything was there, I was like, all right, if you build it, they will come. Like I just gotta believe that now. Yes. And so now it went from, okay, me being an instructor to now being a business owner. And so now that was like, all right, so how do I do this now? Like, I got to pick out my own software. I got to pick out all this, and now I have to do the marketing. And so now you're showing up in just different ways. Yeah. And again, things you probably think you couldn't do, or at least I didn't think I could do. And I was like, all of a sudden, again, I'm in uncomfortable situations, but then getting through it, which is also kind of cool. I'm like, whoa, I just did that other thing that was like kind of scary. Like this is another thing that's kind of scary. But then it feels like you've expanded, right? Like you've grown. And if I'm asking that of like my clients, like try something new, do this thing that's kind of scary. They're like, I can't do that. I'm like, yes, you can. And they do it. And I'm like, yeah. They get excited. I get excited. And then you just keep growing from there, right? But I guess that's sort of like short story long. No, long story short, that is kind of like where it ended up, where it just started is, you know, me serving, wanting to get out of it, and then eventually moving to Spokane and just finding the most perfect space. On this nice busy street, you know, people seeing it. Lucas got me this beautiful like neon light that I'm like, dude, you can see that thing from space. So if you don't know where it is, look for the light, follow the light. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's been. Right now, I feel like it's like running itself. Like clients are just coming in, telling their friends.
Every time I'm like, I need to get in. And then it's like, wait list. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm never getting back into fucking Pilates.
I'll see you next year. Let's go back in February. I know. So I have people kind of like booking or needing to book like privates and stuff like that to kind of get like the times and stuff that they want, which is a good problem to have, you know?
Such a good problem to have.
So yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at. Took me 3 years, but it still feels like it was like yesterday that I opened. Like, but it is just such like a special place. Like I'll go in and I can just stand there and be like, dang, dude, like I built this. Like every day I walk in, I'm like, whoa, there's something about it. And I don't know, there was this, my friend Emily, when we had opened up the studio, and I'll still remember this for forever. I never thought to like put a blessing like on your place, you know, when you opened. And it was like still something that's so special to me because she literally comes in and has like her little Palo Santo and she's like, oh, I'll just like bless your studio. We like stood in front of the big window and she was just like, this studio is going to be like a beacon of light for anybody that needs it is going to be able to find it. It's always going to be safe. Like you're good here. People are going to be safe here. Whatever else she said, there was like that feeling of safety and just like comfort in it. And it's still there. And I can feel that too with even the clients that come in. It's the exact person that needs it. And it's like the exact way that I have to like teach them. Cause they maybe have even tried Pilates somewhere else and they're like, I don't really like it. And I'm like, can you just come in? Like, let me just show you. Because it can be different. So you do have to kind of like find your right teacher, your right, just like vibe, you know, because there's a lot of Pilates studios out here that are amazing and they're for certain people. Like you can feel like, oh, that's close to my house, or, oh my gosh, I really love the way this teacher is, or I like the maybe slower vibe or a private session at this time or whatever it is. So people they really do have to like find their space, like the place that they're like, oh, that's my home studio. And it might not be mine, right? And it might. So, but it's always like, go out and try it out. If people haven't tried Pilates, I'm like, yes. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at.
I mean, it's pretty incredible. Like, and I think what drew me is the mindfulness piece of it. Like, I didn't realize it was slow. I mean, I come from like a athletic background, so it's like go, 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 go. And like just having to slow down and then still feel like you get your ass kicked. Like, I mean, I had a knee injury that you like healed, and now I can ski without pain.
I'm like,
how does this work?
I still get tripped out because I'm like, whoa, I'm just like teaching this method, right? That like I was taught, and so I'm like, okay, well, whenever people have knee things, this is what we would do, and I'm like, whoa, it worked. Like I'm even still sometimes like surprised, but I feel like, people I feel like that are always like in that like rush or fast like kind of pace movement. Is if you can slow down and like we always really talk about like breath connecting to the movement. And so with that, like think of like crunching, right? People are like, ooh, let's do like really fast, like upper ab curls, whatever. But then it's like, what if you curled up and then just stopped, held there, tried to breathe in that position. And then like slowly like moved away. And it's like, it changes everything. Like it brings your like, oh wait, I'm not balanced in my hips. That feels really weird. Or, whoa, I do tighten up, into my neck and draw my shoulders up. So it's like this awareness piece that sometimes gets lost when you're doing maybe like quicker movements or whatever. But I feel like Pilates is very complementary to like a lot of things, right? So with your skiing and everything, remember like our standing, side split series and like a lot of core strength, right? That's needed for what you do too. So I feel like people that do sports, like let Pilates be like this complementary piece, like in addition to rather than only this type of movement, right? Like
Yes.
I only do yoga or I only do weightlifting. I'm like, add Pilates in. And even if it's just to learn like some of the principles or to do something different, there's this, you know, just strength and stretch like piece to it that's in like every exercise, which is kind of crazy.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I feel like it is for everybody, like with injuries, like I said, older clients have people that are like almost in their 80s right now that are keeping up with girls in their 20s and like guys are in there, right? Like, of course I pulled Lucas into it too, but his hips have never felt better, you know? And so, yeah, I just feel like no matter what, I'm like, it's longevity. Like if you want longevity in your life, I'm like, Pilates is the way to do it.
Yes.
And then even for me, like, I feel like it's longevity in my teaching. Like I can teach for forever. Hopefully not in a chair or anything, but like I can stand and I can move and I can, you know, roll down and all the things like move your spine in all these different directions. But yeah, it's like the longevity piece. And I think that's the part that, which I didn't know, but it's like keeping me in this job, right? Like it wasn't the first thing that drew me in. I was like, yeah, workout, like muscles. Yeah. And now I'm like, whoa, like there is that slow down piece and like take your time, but still leave going like, oh my gosh, like why am I sore? Like the next day people are like, oh my gosh, why am I so sore? And like in a good way, but like it feels very just like stabilizing, like things are kind of like back into place. But yeah, that's kind of at least the feedback that I'm getting back from people. I feel good. I'm sore, but in a good way. I'm like, okay, that's what we want.
Did you, in your own journey of going from like, yay, muscles to Pilates, like what was that journey like in your body?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like I remember fitness has always been kind of part of my life. But I would do things like Taibo, like DVDs, you know, like he's doing Taibo. There's like all these weird like dance DVDs and stuff that I would constantly like just want to do something different. And like it was, if you weren't doing high energy cardio, like, you know, sweating at the end of it or whatever, you weren't doing it right, you know? And so I think that one class, and I wish I would remember the teacher's name and all of that, because I was like, I would give her a shout out, but I'm like, I don't even remember, because it was just this moment where it's like, oh yeah, when you come in, just like lay on the foam roller, just kind of like do whatever. And I'm like, okay. And then it was like more very like specific movement. But again, it's like, oh yeah, I can be, like I said, like in an upper ab curl or a bridge or whatever. But then, okay, what if you tipped your pelvis, breathe like this, pressed over here into one arm? Like I was like, what? That kind of just changed everything. So just the mindfulness piece to it made me slow down. And as you can tell, like I'm a fast talker, I'm a fast walker, I'm a fast everything. And so I do feel like me, when I'm in my Pilates like brain, I can slow down. And it doesn't mean that you're doing less at all. And that can go for everything, right? Like slow down, to be mindful, to take care of yourself, eat slower, like do all these things a little bit slower. And I feel like that just brings you just a different feeling of like peace. And I don't know, I just feel like you can do things better when your brain isn't going like a mile a minute, you know? And so, I think those two things together are so good. And that's why I just love like, in our little steam plant building to have like, you know, like, well, it feels like it wants to be a wellness building, and I just like want it to to be that now. So I'm just like,
I'm like dreading to see what goes
right
into
here,
the
and then we have me
space
right there, and then we have Sophia and aesthetic coterie over here. So I'm like, get a massage, you can go over here. But I'm like, okay, any juice places out there, like healthy, like cool spots. I'm like, hop up in that spot. Like I want that so bad. I'm just
like honestly, if we could get like a deli in there, that would be
I want a good healthy lunch.
Yeah, like I want a sandwich every day and some soup, maybe a salad, like some juice, some coffee.
Okay,
like,
see, I'm throwing that out there. So are you. Sophia's throwing the vibes out there. Like whoever has a place and they're looking for a really cute little area with awesome neighbors, come on in.
But please, like, make your bread in house.
Yes,
we need something like that.
Yes. I know. I have some clients
Grain
who make really
Shed,
good.
shout out.
So I have clients who make really good sourdough. I'm like, let's do a co-op. All right. You bring the bread. You got your cheeses.
Yes.
That'd be fun.
Oh my gosh. So where do you see yourself in like the 5-year track? Like things are on wait list.
It is so hard because obviously when I started, right, I'm like, yes, boutique studio. It's so cute, so little. And then there's literally a day where I'm like teaching and it's the same studio, same everything is in their places, but all of a sudden I'm like running into walls or like walking and like hitting my hip over here. And like I started to feel like, and everything's like small now. And I was like, this is so weird. Like, and then of course with the wait list, now there's like 3-4 people on a wait list. I'm like, like now they don't get a class. And then that was like, do I just add more hours? Do I like add more whatever? And I'm like, or you add more reformers, right? But in a tiny space, that's kind of impossible.
I know.
So in these next like few years, it's either, which we've kind of talked about too, is like busting down the wall and I'm inside of that space, so we want the juice and everything in. Or it turns into maybe somewhere else that's just a little bit bigger.
Oh my
and
God,
potentially I know that's why I'm like trying to stay as long as I can, and I'm just like, okay, well, are these classes going to stay this way? Like, is it going to stay this way? And I have to like eventually like, okay, ready or not, like ready for your next piece, right? So it was like growing from just doing mat into into reformer, owning your own business, and now like you start to make that a little bit bigger. So if I can like find a really good instructor that I feel like I can mentor really well, and not necessarily teach the way I teach, but like the same like sort of thought process in it, where it's like teaching to the body in front of you, challenge them safely and all of that stuff. So if I can find somebody that can sort of teach that way, I feel like I would love to have them at that studio. And then I can potentially either grow a second location, or that location is somewhere else and then it's bigger. So I know at a certain point I'm going to need some support. I'm like, I can do everything all the time by myself. No big deal. And now at a certain point I'm like, oh my gosh, like what happens like if I get sick, or, you know, I had this, you know, cancer scare thing on my freaking face, and I had to take time off, and I felt guilty for taking time off when I'm like, dude, if I had somebody that was just, you know, taking over while I was gone, I'm like, and then they're getting paid and everybody's happy, right? Like clients get to come in and they get money and I get a break and all the things. And so I can feel that happening, and I just don't know exactly what it looks like, but I know it has to be growth, obviously. Just not sure exactly what that looks like, but it's definitely like in the back of my mind, like, girl, you're about to blow up now. So but I know I'm gonna need support to do that, and so I think I just have to also be willing to ask for it. Where it was just like, it's just gonna, I'm like, it's just gonna come to me, like whatever. And maybe kind of, but even if you just ask the freaking universe for it, like it's weird when certain people will come into your life after you've just been like, you know what, finally, okay, yes, I do need help, I'm gonna do the steps to get there. And so you might not know the right people or the next step or the next place to go, but then all of a sudden somebody walks into your freaking, you know, office or on the street, or, you know, you have a friend that's in common or whatever the thing is. And, and then that pushes you into your next, like, you know, little series of your life, you know? So like I said, I don't really know what it looks like, but I know it's growth, and I know there's just going to be more of me.
Which I like. I mean, and as like a small business owner, it's so hard to hold all the hats and to do all the things, and I get that. Like I can fully empathize with that guilty feeling when you take time off, and it's like, ugh, like this is like, you
but
know,
they need me
taking from my stability. You know,
I know. And then they'll be like, girl, you need a break. Like they're all like, we totally understand. Yes, go take a break.
Go.
And then they're also like, oh, cool, we got a break. Like they were happy with it, or they got to try something new, you know? So I can't do it all. And honestly, the first thing I remember giving away when I opened my business, like, you can do all the monies. And so I have a really good bookkeeper right now that I'm like, thank you. I don't have to think about like when to pay my quarterly taxes and like this is all stuff I don't want to do. But as literally a business owner, that is what you're doing. All the stuff you don't really want to do until you can give it to somebody else, right? Delegate. And eventually I'm like, yes, I will delegate all of the office things. Like, I don't mind the marketing. I actually like the marketing. It's kind of fun to like show up to events and, you know, to do all that stuff. But I'm like, honestly, my heart and my passion is in the teaching and to just, like I said, help people feel better in their bodies. It's like my freaking slogan at this point. I said it so much, I was like, I guess I'll put it in writing. So it's like literally, I made a sticker. I've made a freaking, you know, big, not billboard, but
it's like a banner.
Yeah, the banner that's like on the sidewall. I was like, thanks for letting me keep it up for so long. Last time they were like, 3 months, and they took it down. I was like, oh man, I just paid like a lot of money for that thing. Like, what the heck? No, but it's nice because I feel like, again, it's just like another sign. Like, okay, let's come into here. But so that's kind of where I'm at.
And there is like a lot of relief in handing something over. Like I can attest to that because there's a lot of trust that goes into it, and you have to really use discernment and good judgment, and
can't just be anybody.
Not everyone is a success.
You.
Yeah, it's you, your business, your clients. It's totally a reflection of you, and it's like you have one poor interaction with a client, and our businesses survive on like word of mouth referral.
100%.
So it's like, that trust piece is like, do you truly understand my mission and values and how we treat people and what we're trying to accomplish and achieve here?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, are you aligned with that, or are you just in it because like you need a job and you don't, so yeah, slow growth is good growth is my mantra. Like,
I agree, because I feel like it stays around longer too.
Yes.
Like you're like, it took me a while to get this person to find the right fit, but it's like they're going to be with you for a really long time, right? Like you can think about them as, it literally is a relationship, right?
Yes.
Like you're not just going to hop into the first, relationship like, well, he likes me, so I might as well like date.
Yes.
It's kind of that way where, you think about, because everything is a relationship. It might not be a, lovey relationship like that, but like romantic or anything, but it is a relationship regardless, like the way you treat each other and the way you treat, the clients that come in, how you would handle like maybe a certain situation. But yeah, I love that too for your growth in your business, like just to be able to see that you don't have to be there all day and every day, but then people are still being taken care of. Like it's just so nice. And to be able to curate that is really important, and like to find the right people, because it's like, is anybody else out there like me? Like that's hard to find.
Literally.
It really is.
Yes, and it is about community. For me and my business, like we're building community.
Absolutely.
And so it's there. You become protective of that, and you want to like
man, that was like my first like word of the year. I remember that, like I moved here and I was like, community, I'm gonna build it. And it's more than just like other people being around while you're around. Like it's not just like a group of people. It's like when my clients come in, and it's the cutest thing ever to watch is like before class and after class, them coming in and be like, oh my gosh, like cool, what'd you do this weekend? Or oh my gosh, wow, you really got that plank series this time. Like they're so like, the motivation that they give each other during class, like they'll kind of want to stop and they're like, come on ladies, and I'm like, like I should be the one doing this, but I was like, you guys got this. They exchange numbers, they're going out for coffee. I'm like, that's what I wanted to bring to it. And then to help other girls that have like even like their small businesses there, they're like, oh, I'm going to support her. I'm going to go to her. Like, oh my gosh, do you know a whatever? Like, I totally know a good hair girl. Like, and then they just like exchange little things like that. And so, that those people that are coming in, I know that they're there for Pilates and that they're there for me. And I feel like I could do like, Pilates on the mat or Pilates on this. They're like, girl, we're down for whatever. Like, they're just there to like get their movement in, and they're just like so trusting, and like that's what I want to in the community that I have. And like I said, them welcoming other people. So when there's like a brand new person coming in and they have, well, this is our reform, like no one's like that, like that's the reformer I'm actually always on. So they're just like, oh my gosh, welcome. And they're as welcoming and as like sweet as I feel like I would be to a new person coming in. Like, so it makes, I think, that new person feel like, oh, okay, I'm not like in somebody else's space. Like this could potentially also be like my space. So I feel like that community aspect is huge. Like that's, like I said, my first word of the year when I was here, and I was like, nailed it. Like, so there's some good people out here for sure, especially in the wellness industry. Like for real. I was like, this is bigger in Spokane than it is in like California, which you would think kind of like, oh, wellness and like everyone's working out or they're like, eating vegan or whatever. But the community part's lost in it because I think it's so big that it's almost harder to find people, which is weird. But then when it's a smaller space, it's like people can kind of easily more come together. Like when they're like, oh, Spokane's so small. I'm like, I love that feeling of it though. Like it's still big. Like there's a lot of people I don't know out here. But what's cool is when you're in like the wellness field, right? You're like, oh my gosh, well, you need to go meditate over here at Alamkara. Oh, you need to go get a massage over here. And it's kind of like you're just helping each other out. Like there's more community, and the community just does get bigger and bigger. And so, I don't know. I do love it out here though.
Well, and it's a different like cultural vibe too. Like California, people are so defensive and wrapped up in image and performance and
image,
and you don't really find that here. It's like more authentic
Yes.
community
Yes.
and more like people don't give a shit. They're gonna like, be attracted to authenticity and genuineness and
and more to energy too, because I'm like, let me tell you what, if you can see me now, it's like I got no makeup on, like I'm just like walking around like this is just who I am. Sorry about that. Like if you don't like it. But I don't know if that I could actually ever do that in California. If I'm being honest, I was like,
never.
oh my gosh, like I would feel like judgment from all sides.
No.
Yeah. So now I'm just like, you know what? I don't feel like it. Like at the end of the day, I don't want to wash off my mascara. Like, there's days I love getting ready and I want to get like all, fancy and cute. And then some days I'm like, dude, I'm just going to go teach Pilates to like my people. Like they're not going to judge me. I'm not going to judge them. Like, let's just all do the thing,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no. In California, it's like I'm also Bay Area, born and bred, and it's like your casual is like slumming it, and so I go home and I'm like, I'm so uncomfortable. I have to like do my hair and put on makeup and like jump back into that like performance identity, and it's exhausting, and I don't want to be in it. I know.
I like out here too. I remember she's like, okay, Lucas, what should we wear to like your friend's house, or like what should we wear to this? And he's like, dude, just like wear what you're wearing. You have like leggings on and what like you're fine. And I was like, oh. Okay. Like, but it is like you always do kind of feel like you have to put on like a performance to go somewhere else. And then it all honestly just doesn't even feel that good when you're there. You're like, okay, now we're just at this party, but like I kind of feel uncomfortable. Like it's just weird. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like out here it just was easy for me to like slip into the like Spokane vibe, and just maybe it was because we felt good having Lucas's family here and like friends and stuff like that too. So it did feel like, oh, this is easy. Like it's just really easy to be here. And like, but then owning a business too, you think like that would be like super hard in the beginning, and I'm like, kind of, I guess. But again, I had all the support from like his friends and family coming in, and they're like, we're gonna buy classes. I'm like, please don't, just come in. I just want to teach. And they're like, he Venmoing me, and I'm like, okay, but that's the support too that you need in the beginning for me to be able to also be like, oh, I have to say yes to money if I want to keep this roof over my head and to keep serving people. Like I have to be okay with receiving that money or receiving whatever the thing is, which is my word of the year this year was receive. And so I feel like that straight up, I mean, that worked. Like I was like, just pick a word of the year, people. Like it's weird, like how it like threads through the rest of your year. And like I'll find it everywhere I go. I'm like, whoa, okay, just receive that compliment. Just receive that money. Just receive that gift, and without having to say anything about it. Like just thank you. That's it. Like period. Instead of like, oh my God, thank you. This shirt's like $4. It has a hole over here. Like you're good. Like just enjoy the compliment, sit with it, and like just be okay. Yeah. So that part, that's another slowing down thing I think too. It's just like, it's okay. Just take the compliment. Thank you. Period. You don't have to say anything else. Fill in the silence that I like to do too.
I mean, it's definitely an important piece to find that balance. I think everything within balance and everything, I always say, like everything in moderation, like.
It is true. Eat the dang cookie.
Yes. Eat 4.
Whatever. How big are the cookies? Got to take that into account too.
No, I really appreciate the community, the learning that I've had in your studio and with you, and just like the way you approach things. It's not like you're so casual. Nothing's like a big deal. And internally you're like, this is a really big deal and this is really hard. And I'm dying. I'm shaking. And you're like, you're fine, girl. You got it. Keep going.
And then you did it, though. That's the crazy thing. It's like, but I already know you can. Like, I wouldn't give people an exercise that I know they wouldn't be successful at. Like, for a fact. Even if it was like a little bit hard for them to do it, I'm like, I know you can do it. Because we already prepped for this. Like, you don't know it, but we already prepped to get you to this point right now. And so that is always really cool to see them go, and their eyes just like light up, and they're like, oh my God, I did it. Or like we're standing on their form like, oh, there's no way. And they get up like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of cool. So, but I just love seeing those like breakthroughs with people. And then in just the confidence that they get too. And then they're leaving with that they can do other things throughout the rest of their day, right? Like you kind of feel like you did something big in movement that you didn't think you could do. And now it's like, wait, I could probably go talk to that person now. Oh, cool. Maybe I will go do this other thing. Like, it's just, it brings so much more than just like the fitness aspect to it, which is, I think we kind of keep coming back to like mindfulness or like this feeling of confidence. And I think that's what I've gotten from it a lot, especially the confidence piece. I'm like, if anything, like, I know I might not be good at everything, but like, if I can teach a class, like, and that's what I'm speaking about is Pilates, I'm like, okay, I could do that all day. If you made me talk about anything else, I'd be like, it's the wrong person. You might want to find somebody else for that. Like, Pilates, I feel like I could talk about that just all day, how it feels for me to teach, how it feels in my own body. And even when people like, take breaks for a long time and then come back to it, they're like, whoa, this is actually like really hard. Like, it's all the springs are out. Like, what's going on with that? I was like, like, you just don't even realize how strong you're getting. And then all of a sudden there's like a day that you're like, whoa, you're doing everything without like the feeling or even the look of like a struggle, like to do it like with grace or with flow and like just so much like connection. It's like, oh, it's not like a ballerina, kind of how they are, right? Like, you're like, oh my gosh, how are you just spinning on your toes, lifting your leg like straight up above your head? But it's like, there's work in there, but it doesn't look like it. It's like effortless to them. And like, eventually that's what happens because your body is so in tune with it and you're so connected. So that's always kind of cool to watch too, is just, again, to see the strength that like clients are, creating and kind of like on their own. Like, it's kind of cool. I'm like, you guys show up every day. Like, thanks. I'm like, thank you. Like, and thank your own freaking body for doing it. Cause I'm here and I'm saying words, but it's like your body that's doing like the hard part. Like, I got the easy job over here. So no, but I honestly, I just love what I do. I love Pilates just as a whole for everything that it is. And I know there's different, like I said, the way that I teach is more athletic and it is more of like a contemporary thing. But you'll see a lot of like classical reformer, classical, Pilates and stuff like that. Or people even say that this is Pilates. And I'm like, oh, there wasn't one Pilates move in there, but that's fine. Cause you can also have, the Pilates principles in your mind. And so it's these feelings of like breathing, connection, centering, control, precision, flow, like these things that are woven throughout your movement, where it might not necessarily be a teaser, but maybe it's, I'm really centered. I know I feel balanced in my hips here in this movement and I'm like reaching or I'm breathing in this move or whatever it is. So it's like, I kind of come back more to the principles even more than like just the classical moves. But I really feel like I've built on that. Like you go through the training, you get the classical moves in your mind, and then you can kind of do what you want with it, right? Like you can like, oh, I'm going to add a little bit of flair to that one or whatever. But also again, it's teaching the person in front of you. So it's like, maybe they can't lift their leg and that's what the exercise calls for. What if you just kept your toes down, like, and so it is just kind of like building that into people's bodies. But
love it. So where can people find you?
Oh yes,
if they could get into a class.
Physically, if they want to come in to this brick and mortar amazing studio that I have, is it's on Lincoln. It's right in the steam plant building. You'll see the huge sign.
Follow the light.
Follow the light. And that's in the studio. And then just on Instagram, it's at the Pilates Ritual.
Awesome.
And then just Tiana at thepilatesritual.com if you want to like email me or whatever. But I have the whole website, all the things there, lots of pictures, videos. So if you're like, what the heck is Pilates? So you can just literally go on Instagram and type in the Pilates Ritual.
Love it.
And then just make Pilates part of your everyday ritual.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, please feel free to follow up with Tiana or myself, and I'll get you connected if you're not following her instructions on how to reach her directly, which is a thing. Thank you for being here, and we hope you find some connection in your daily movement. All right.
Bye.